So in this video, I'm going to explore creative ways that Dumfries and Galloway can maintain a population and also attract a population from other parts of the country. I'm going to try and explain my ideas as concisely as possible, and there will be 3 sections to this video. It'll be first looking at tourism, then looking at ways that you can attract highly skilled workers to the area, and thirdly, it will be focused on ways you can keep young people in the area. So this is Dumfries and Galloway. It's an visually stunning area of the world, but it's also in a remote part of the world. And that means if you're going to convince tourists to come and visit the area, you have to be promising them a lot. I think considering the area's placing, Dumfries and Galloway should join forces and work on a wider vision, which would be to promote the Dublin to Edinburgh road trip. This trip would start in Dublin or Edinburgh. You would then spend X amount of days in Dublin before travelling an hour up north to Belfast. And then in Belfast, you would take the ferry over to the start of Dumfries and Galloway, which is only, again, another hour. Spend however long you want going through Dumfries and Galloway. And then at the end of Dumfries and Galloway, it's an hour to Glasgow, where you can spend as many days as you want. And then an hour to Edinburgh, your final destination. I think this route is appealing to foreigners because A, it's a concise holiday that offers a little bit of everything. 3 capital cities, Scotland's largest city, and sandwiched neatly in between is a break from cities and a chance to experience authentic rural Scotland. But B, I also think it is a really easy route, one that would be impossible to get lost on, and the bit that you'd think that would be quite challenging would be when you were travelling through the rural area. But actually, from here to here, which is where you'd be travelling through Dumfries and Galloway, it's just the A75 all the way, and then right at the end, the A74. So this would be really good for people who want to sort of have an adventure, but maybe don't have a huge amount of experience travelling and would have a bit of anxiety about getting lost. It's also a route that's very easy to tailor. When you're in Dumfries and Galloway, you can choose to dedicate 3 days, say, to hill walking, or history, or castle tours, whisky, or outdoor sports. And Dumfries and Galloway could easily create suggested routes for each theme and make them available online. Each theme could be colour-coded and businesses could work together. So say if your blue code was the whisky tour, where you make your way through all the whisky distilleries, any willing brewery in the area could agree to like a blue 3-day ticket that could be bought online, and that would offer a package price on entry to all the breweries. I think this route would appeal to 2 main markets. The first is Americans. They love all the things Scotland and Ireland offer that their own country can't, and they are obsessed with tracing family history. The second market is Europeans, who have either already done mainland Europe interrailing, but due to geography couldn't make it up to Scotland and Ireland, or for people who want the sort of interrailing type experience but don't have the time it would take to do mainland Europe. I think another big selling point is that because Dumfries and Galloway, as I said, is in a difficult area to get to, this is a way of making it very accessible and very cheap to get to. So what I did is I checked how much it would cost if 2 months from today we were to fly, imagine we're in Rome, to Dublin, and then 10 days later fly back from Edinburgh. That's £150. And if you did the same thing travelling from New York, you could get it for £463. So I think that makes it realistic that people would then come to Dumfries and Galloway. And I personally think that even though it might seem that promoting this tourism attraction route is sort of like diluting your energy, because you could be promoting 100% Dumfries and Galloway. I actually think that if we want tourism on a large scale, this is actually probably one of the most exciting opportunities we might have of making it achievable. And I also think that when you're selling to tourism, or selling in general, you have an ethical responsibility to be making sure people get amazing value. And I genuinely think this would be an amazing route to do. I know I would enjoy it. So this section of the video is going to be looking at ways to keep skilled people in the area and ways of recruiting skilled people to the area. And the first idea I'm going to talk about isn't mine. It's a boy's called Michael's, who I met this week. He's a really cool guy. He is a student at Glasgow University Dumfries campus. And I was expressing that, I think I'd find that a bit boring because it only does 2 courses. So, is there much social life involved, etc., etc.? And he was saying it's surprising how much student life is innovative. And so the more students you bring to an area, the more things naturally start to happen, the more societies spring up, the more businesses that are created. And he was saying that it's such a wasted opportunity. And after I've thought about it, I completely agree that the University of Glasgow doesn't offer a course in medicine at the Dumfries campus because Dumfries and Galloway has a serious problem with recruiting doctors. It's reaching crisis point. But B, Dumfries literally has an empty hospital right now because we've just made a new one. And so there is so much genuine potential for Dumfries campus to be a place where doctors of the future are trained and offered great opportunities at the end of it. That would create 2 opportunities. It would be the opportunity to then recruit doctors in the area, something we undoubtedly need, but also a great way of ensuring that Dumfries and Galloway has a healthy student population and a highly intelligent one at that. And the more I think about it, the more that actually it's not that small towns are a problem for students. They're just a problem for a certain type of student. So, for example, I study in London, and that's why the idea of studying at Dumfries isn't appealing to me. But look at the success of St Andrews and Durham. There is undoubtedly a market for people who want to go to university but to maintain the small town feel. And University of Glasgow is a world-known university. So that in itself would entice people to study at it. So I believe that one of the main ways Dumfries and Galloway can, in the future, look towards how can we get young, skilled people into the area is by creating discussions with the University of Glasgow and the University of West of Scotland about, okay, we would love you to bring more courses to this area. How can we work with you to make that happen? I just think that we're really missing an opportunity by the University of Glasgow Dumfries campus only having 2 subjects that they teach. So my second way that we can bring skilled people to the area after graduation is that Dumfries and Galloway offers exceptionally cheap rent. I was talking to a girl called Miriam this week, and she was saying that her rent is £250 a month. I live in London, and my rent is £710 a month. It sounds like Miriam gets a much nicer place. So, something that our generation really has instilled in us is this idea that, we want to be enterprising. But it's very difficult in the beginning to start a business because you have no money. And so what is increasingly being encouraged in young people is for them to like, okay, so you've graduated with, say, your business degree or whatever. You want to start some online business, which you can do anywhere. So why don't you, to save money but also to have an amazing experience, go and live in Southeast Asia for a year? And that way, say if you live in Thailand, you can get all of your rent and all of your expenses for under £300 a month. You'll get a really cool experience, and that will offer you an excellent and realistic opportunity to start a successful online business. So, why isn't Dumfries and Galloway doing the same? People who've lived in London all their lives, or people even who say have lived in New York or Singapore all their lives, these people want to start businesses, online businesses, because the future of business is online. But they can't realistically do it because they still have to pay $500 a week just to stay alive. And so it doesn't matter how much they want to start a business. They have financial responsibilities that are tying them to reality. But if there was some way that Dumfries and Galloway could promote the idea, young people move here for 2 years to give their online business a real shot, then that would be amazing. Because A, how cool would it be if you were from like London to do something different and live in Dumfries and Galloway for a year and start a business? But B, businesses in the area make money, they create opportunities, and these people might stay longer than a year or 2 years. So I think that this is a really exciting opportunity. And then, for example, say the stove, they could start doing things where like every Monday, it's like the under 35s club for entrepreneurs, and they get like 20% off their coffee. But it's basically just an opportunity for like all the laptops to come in every Monday and for it to be a bit of a connection and business hub. So yeah, I think that would be a really cool thing. In terms of keeping skills in the area and young people in the area, something that I talked about on Friday at the think tank is that when I was a school student, and I think my experience is very typical, I got quite good grades, and so whenever I went to my guidance teacher, she never asked, "What do you want to do with your life?" She always asked, "What do you want to go and study?" Which, I mean, aside from the fact that I've got dyslexia, university probably wasn't for me. And there's lots of reasons why university shouldn't necessarily be for everyone. But B, to make it relevant to this video, that's basically ensuring that all of the skilled, or, a certain type of skilled person is leaving Dumfries and Galloway. You're being blatantly taught by the Dumfries and Galloway school system, if you have talent, if you have intellectual potential, you're not going to be able to achieve that here in Dumfries and Galloway, so leave. And what this does, A, is create resentment, because I always felt quite bad that I lived in Dumfries and Galloway when it seemed that other places had a lot more fun. But what it also did was it ensured that the skill set left. And it made the skill set leave even when they didn't necessarily have to. So I think what we have to do is we have to talk to schools of ways that we can keep the talent pool in Dumfries and Galloway. And so we have to start conversations with guidance teachers and head teachers. What options are you not promoting? And if you can't find any options, how can we create options? What are the alternative internship schemes, apprenticeship schemes that we can be offering in Dumfries and Galloway realistically? And something I was thinking about is that when I went to university, well, I am at university, but SAS gives you a bursary. And that is because The Scottish Government values people being in education because it leads to a skilled population and it leads to a healthy economy. But that's not the only thing that leads to a skilled population and a good economy. What also creates these things is young entrepreneurs. And I think that when you leave school, everyone should be entitled to a bursary on the condition that you prove it's going to enhance your life and enhance society. So the bursary should be universal, not just for university students. And it can be used to go to university because that's completely valid. But it can also be used to, say, create a business when you're an 18-year-old with no money, but you have the ambition and you've looked into why this business would be successful. You just don't have the financial means. If you can prove that, then you should be entitled to the bursary, not just because it's a good way to start your life off, but because it's a really good investment from the Scottish Government. So I think that when you're 16, 17, 18 and schools are saying to you, okay, so go to Dundee, go to Aberdeen, they should also be saying, or would you like some money to start a business here? So in kind of aligned with that is that I think for young people to stay in the area and for young people to be successful in business, they need a car. And the problem is that cars are very expensive. So I think what should be looked into is the possibility of, say, maybe under 25s, if they can prove that they bought the car for either access to employment or access to their own business, then the Scottish Government should look into offering kids in rural areas capped insurance. And that way, they're not thinking, well, I just can't stay here because I can't every time I want to go to work, spend a ridiculous amount of money. This is a way that, in the short term at least, Scotland can be helping young people travel in their rural areas. So I'm going to end this soon, but I think something that has to be congratulated from Dumfries and Galloway is their graduate scheme, where they employ recent graduates who either come from Dumfries and Galloway or who studied in Dumfries and Galloway, and they give them basically a year's internship before a job offer at the end. That's a really good way of bringing back people to Dumfries and Galloway and offering them good prospects. But I think maybe Dumfries and Galloway can work harder as a collective and maybe create some kind of, maybe with the Dumfries and Galloway Council, some kind of website where all of Dumfries and Galloway's internships are available to be seen all at once. And then more can be done to be talking with local businesses and saying, what internships can you offer? And can you do a scheme where they're firstly offered to people from Dumfries and Galloway? I think that would, because a summer internship is quite expensive. And so the first choice would usually be to be able to do it in your hometown, because then you can save money. So I think that we're really missing an opportunity there. But also I think that employers are missing a trick, because young people are very skilled and have so much to offer. And they might not realise that until they have an intern, say, at the book fair for 3 months. And then suddenly they're like, oh, actually, we really like this person. And we can find a job for them because they will make us money. So that way, like, everyone's benefiting if we can create more internships in Dumfries and Galloway. So everything that I've said, well, some of it's more ambitious than the rest, and I guess this is the time when I should talk about how realistic some of it is, because I mean, I don't have expectations that like this video will create any of it to be implemented. It's more just a sort of, I just more wanted to say it all theoretically and then put it out there with the dream that the comment section of the video would sort of become a discussion hub. But is it realistic, these things? Because obviously talking about it in your garden's fine, but how much thousands, tens of thousands, etc. would it cost? And so maybe I'm speaking a little bit naively here, but what I would say is that Scotland as a general rule is fairly socialist. And the kind of mentality, one of the core mentalities of socialism is that when you invest in people, your investment comes back to you. So you're not just helping homeless people because it's a good thing to do. When you help homeless people, they then become productive citizens who create jobs. They financially contribute. And if you hadn't helped them to begin with, that wouldn't be possible. I think we have to look at young people in the same way. It might cost a lot of money to initially invest in them, but they then have their whole life to pay it back to society, and hopefully especially Dumfries and Galloway. But the less you invest in them, the less that they're going to do that. A, because you don't realise that you're valuable until you're taught that you are by other people. And the state is a big part of teaching you that as well. It's not just from your parents, etc., etc. But also, realistically, how was I meant to know how lovely Dumfries and Galloway was before someone helped me see it, which happened this week? I mean, how would I have had the funds to do it myself? I don't drive. You know, I don't have money. I don't have much free time. So it took someone to invest in me this week for you to hopefully be getting something back now. And the same should be looked at on a much broader level. But also what I would say is, in terms of getting things off the ground, the general rule seems to be, and this is a little unfortunate, but I think it's true, politicians always try their best to present innovative and to present progressive and forward thinking, but they only ever actually do it when they know it's a safe thing to do. And one of the most obvious examples of that was like the gay rights movement, when, you know, politicians were either silent or blatantly saying, you know, these gay laws are quite disgusting. And it was activists that were really pushing the agenda and getting seriously abused for it for years and years and years, slowly turning public opinion. And lots of people died in the process. And just at that tipping point where public opinion was suddenly in the favour of gay rights for LGBT people, that's when the politicians were suddenly really behind it and really supportive. And they have been as a majority ever since. But they didn't start by doing that. And they weren't passionate about helping gay people. They were passionate about getting votes. So sorry, that seems like a bit of a tangent, but why it's relevant is that you can't expect politics to take the lead on innovation. If there's something out there that you think needs to be changed or needs to be created to exist for people, you have to work really, really hard to make it happen yourself and to prove to politicians that it should exist that way. So if there's things that we want to do to change Dumfries and Galloway, then we have to do it ourselves, at least to start with, until Dumfries and Galloway becomes a model for the whole of Scotland and people start looking at our area and going, okay, we're going to create these ideas based on what they've done, because what they've done has worked out fantastically. And I know it could. I really have so much faith in Dumfries and Galloway. So this is why we really need to support each other as a community and to look at things like the stove and sleeping giants, Mool, the Queerier, all these things where it's just people working together to be innovative and to create something a bit different and a bit progressive. And maybe if any of these ideas have sort of struck a chord and seem like they might work, then that's the most realistic way that they'll get off the ground. It's not by immediately expecting the government or the council to be able to step in and implement these things. So this week was a big week for me. I went around Dumfries and Galloway and I looked at the challenges that people from rural areas faced and also the opportunities that come from living in a rural area like Dumfries and Galloway. And not only did it prove incredibly interesting from an economics perspective, a political perspective, a geography perspective, but it also was quite a touching week. Because I'm from Dumfries and Galloway, I'd never realised how attached I was to it because I was always someone who was set on moving to a city as soon as possible. But actually this week has made me realise that where you're from is a huge part of who you are. And so there's a lot of correlation between feeling good about where you come from and feeling good about yourself. And this week has made me feel very passionate about ensuring that Dumfries and Galloway, the residents, feel good about where they come from, because that correlates with their general well-being and mental health. I've met so many incredible people this week, and I'm not saying that just to sort of be like nice. I've been surprised at how many lovely, intelligent people I've met this week, and that comes from a personal snobbery, where I've always felt that like, oh, Dumfries and Galloway's, it's safe, so it's nice to be a child here, but in terms of developing my intellectual potential, I have to move away. But what this week has taught me is that actually Dumfries and Galloway has so many opportunities for personal growth. And the reason that that's not known about is the problem, over the problem being that the opportunities don't exist. And so it's become a personal passion of mine to promote Dumfries and Galloway for the sake of its current residents, because I feel they deserve it, but also just because I think in general, actually, the more promoted Dumfries and Galloway is, the world deserves to see it. It's a really beautiful area, and I can say for one of the first times in my life that I am so grateful I come from here. So I'm going to end with a video that showcases the week I've had, but also how beautiful Dumfries and Galloway is. It's not my own. It's a young man called Stuart Hates. And the other reason why I'm ending with this video is because Stuart is from Dumfries, he is local. And the talent that this video demonstrates is one of the clearest examples I have of how talented Dumfries and Galloway really is, the potential that the young people have in this area, and why that should be capitalised on. So I hope you enjoy it, and thank you so much for persevering with this video.